stretching almost 6,000 miles from east to west. This is the biggest country on our planet. But it's also a land of mystery, with some of the most extreme habitats anywhere on Earth. In this remote and isolated wilderness, some of nature's most incredible animals have adapted in amazing ways. But this wild refuge is a fragile paradise. Here, some of the planet's rarest and most iconic creatures must battle for territory and for their very survival. Welcome to the wild Eden of Russia. Sunrise in a wilderness of almost unimaginable proportions. This country is so vast, dawn may be breaking here on Russia's eastern coast. But the sun won't rise on its western frontier for another 11 hours. Covering over 6 million square miles between Eastern Europe and the Pacific, Russia's biodiversity is amazingly varied and harbors many important yet vulnerable habitats. Towering mountains, vast deserts, and almost a quarter of all trees on our planet. But perhaps Russia's most threatened region is found on its very northern frontier. For most of the year, Russia's entire Arctic coast is locked in sea ice. But climate change means the polar ice cap's summer volume has decreased by 2/3 since the 1980s. And at this time of year, these melting ice floes now retreat hundreds of miles from land. But this changing marine habitat is actually home to the planet's biggest land-living carnivore. Marooned here among the dwindling ice, and now fighting for survival. A female polar bear, hunting for seals. But getting close enough to catch one at this time of year will be extremely tough. Swimming between the fractured summer sea ice is much more strenuous than when the seas are frozen. It also makes it easier for her prey to escape. But just finding a seal among thousands of ice floes is the biggest challenge. So the bear has developed an ingenious hunting strategy to help sniff out her prey. She is traveling north into the wind. Then, by moving left and right in long zigzags, she constantly sniffs the air. This allows her nose to scour a much larger area than moving in a straight line. And the bear appears to have picked up a scent. A bearded seal resting on an ice floe, more than a mile ahead. The hunt is now on. Moving silently through the water, the bear begins to close in on the seal. She's moving in the right direction, but she's still more than half a mile away from the seal, and she still hasn't seen it. So the bear must repeatedly climb out onto the ice, using only her nose to remain locked onto her target. This bear may be the world's biggest land carnivore, but she can enter the water without making even the slightest ripple, as she gradually closes in. When basking in the Arctic sunshine, seals maintain their guard at all times. But the bear's stealth and camouflage make her almost indistinguishable from a piece of sea ice. Even with the bear now just yards away, the seal has no idea of what's about to take place. Slipping beneath the surface, now moving beneath the ice. The bear just needs to select the perfect moment to strike. The seal reacts quickly in a desperate attempt to evade the bear. But like most hunts at this time of year, the fractured summer sea ice means the long hunt has been a waste of valuable energy. For Russia's polar bears, winter cannot come soon enough. But another of the Arctic's most iconic species has evolved a clever trick to make hunting easier all year round. Usually bright white, this Arctic fox's fur changes with the seasons. He was only born in spring, but he has already been kicked out of the den and must now hunt for himself. High up on these cliffs, a huge colony of nesting Brunix guillemots. To a hungry fox, the challenge is irresistible. The chicks in these precarious nests are already big enough to fly. But the fox isn't after the birds. There could be thousands of unhatched eggs still waiting on the cliff. High in protein, guillemot eggs are a delicacy worth risking a perilous climb up the sheer cliff face. It's now too late in the season for the eggs to hatch. But the adult guillemots are willing to defend their nest. Not giving up, the wily fox tries to climb around to the nest from the other side. But once again, the bird's defensive squawks and powerful beaks push him back. Further up the cliff, however, the fox finds an abandoned nest. But another of Russia's habitats provides a summer feast on an entirely different scale. This is Kamchatka, an immense, isolated wilderness that has 29 active volcanoes. And the highest density of brown bears anywhere on the planet. This is summer, and hundreds of bears have gathered near the shoreline to mate and raise their cubs. This female's 3 cubs were born in the den last winter, weighing just a few ounces. But thanks to her milk, they are growing rapidly. So today, she only allows the hungry cubs a short suckle. If they are to grow strong enough to survive their first winter, she must start to wean them onto the salmon that will soon be arriving here in their millions for their annual spawning. These waters will soon be choking with millions of sockeye salmon. On a mission to deposit their eggs upstream in the lake's tributaries. The arrival of the salmon marks the beginning of one of nature's greatest feasts. The mother catches a fish for each of her cubs. But while hungry bears can consume 40 whole salmon a day, it's feared overfishing and warming sea temperatures could pose a much greater threat to salmon numbers. It's the bounty of salmon that attracts so many bears here, allowing them to mate and raise their cubs on the banks of Lake Kurill. But sometimes, living in such close proximity to other bears also brings danger. This year's mating season is already over, but this male still appears to be searching for a mate. And when he picks up the scent of these 2 cubs, it's a sure sign that a fertile female will be nearby. The male is still a long way off, and he knows the female won't mate whilst her cubs are still suckling. But by finding and killing the young bears, he might get a chance to breed. She would fight to the death to protect her cubs. But detecting the approaching male, today she opts for flight, not fight, and leads the cubs into the trees to hide. It's a dangerous game. But the tactic seems to pay off. And eventually, the male gives up. allowing the female to head towards the lake to feed. These steaming geothermal waters have become a paradise for Russia's brown bears. But even Kamchatka's pristine beauty is dwarfed by Russia's biggest territory. Encompassing more than 3/4 of its total landmass, Siberia is a brutal but fragile wilderness. The majority of its 5 million square miles are covered in some of the planet's most important forest. CO2 emissions are the main cause of global climate change. And Siberia holds most of Russia's 640 billion trees that remove 500 million tons of CO2 from the atmosphere and harbour some of Russia's deadliest and most elusive predators, including the largest species of owl in the world. Found in forests right across the Northern Hemisphere, great grey owls have even adapted to the punishing winters of Siberia. The owl's superpowered hearing can detect prey under almost 3 feet of snow. But in summer, she also uses her powerful binocular vision to scan the meadow for any signs of life. A lemming, venturing out of its burrow, he's searching for fresh grass. Initially, the cautious lemming stays close to the cover of its burrow. But growing in confidence, gradually he ventures further from safety. Over 50 yards away, the owl waits for the perfect moment. Eventually, the lemming wanders too far, and the owl makes her move. After crushing the lemming in her talons, she simply swallows it whole, before returning back to her nest in the trees. October in one of the most biologically diverse temperate forests in the world. For just 2 weeks each year, its leaves produce a riot of gold and green. Also known as the Amur, this 380 million acre watershed is named after the river that forms Russia's natural border with China. Once the leaves drop, the region may appear lifeless. But these forests harbour almost 3,000 species of plant. And it also contains the last refuge for the most critically endangered big cats on Earth. This forest is known as the land of the leopard. The leopards that live here were once found right across Asia, but less than 40 are now thought to remain in the wild. So even glimpses of these predators are extremely rare. Their camouflage is perfect for the Amur's autumn terrain, and their main weapon for hunting the large deer that roam these forests. But they are always on the lookout for any opportunity. With less than 15% of hunts successful, they must also plan ahead. This male stashes the remains of previous kills in trees or in his den, enabling him to feed at his leisure. But he is also hiding his kill from another predator. It may be bigger and deadlier than the leopard, but it's almost as endangered. The leopards share their forest with the Amur tiger. Due to habitat loss and hunting, only 500 now remain in the wild. Virtually all of them live here, in the Russian Far East. At over 600 pounds, they are the largest big cats on Earth. Like all tigers, this male is highly territorial. But they will come together when it's time to mate. He turns his nose to the wind, and he appears to have picked up a scent. Nearby, on the other side of the valley, this female is in her den. But she has been out marking her territory with coded messages, intended for any males in the area. Hormones in her urine advertise her readiness to mate. With so few of these animals left on the planet, it's vital these messages aren't interrupted. To decode the female's scent, the male draws it into a special organ that tells him if she will accept his advances. It's the female that makes the first move by putting out the message. But if a male responds, a courting process will still be necessary. She may be looking to reproduce, but this isn't a one-night affair. Once they meet, the tigers will stay together for days, sniffing and rubbing their bodies together, forming an intimate bond and mating many times. But the romance is short-lived. After their brief encounter, the male will immediately head off in search of another female and will play no further role in the raising of his offspring. Today, it seems this male has other things on his mind. Turning away from the female and heading off in search of his other great passion, food. The sun is now setting, and the Amur forest will soon be alive with hungry predators looking for a meal. A full moon over Russia's Amur forest. Having waited for the safety of darkness, a tiny shrew emerges from its burrow. The shrew is an easy target for any predator. But this shrew has two secret weapons that set him apart from other rodents. Found in streams and ponds across Russia, this is a Eurasian water shrew. He uses his powerful swimming skills to patrol his territory each night in search of food. And despite his cute and cuddly appearance, this shrew is actually a predator, looking for prey. And when he finds it, he will call on his second weapon. This water shrew has two venom glands under his jaw, giving him highly toxic saliva, making him one of the only venomous mammals on Earth. By combining these two superpowers, the shrew catches most of his prey underwater. His powerful hind paws help him dive down in search of invertebrates, small fish, and even amphibians. The tiny bubbles of air trapped by his fur make him highly buoyant, which makes it difficult to remain underwater for long. So this shrew must make multiple dives and will take any opportunity to feed, no matter how small. 3 feet below the surface, an alderfly larvae is on the move, just out of sight of the shrew. But not for long. Unlike a fish, the larvae is slow, making it an easy target for the agile shrew. Its venom incapacitates its prey, allowing it to carry it to the surface and finish his meal on dry land. He'll need to eat a lot more larvae to fatten up for the Amur's fast-approaching winter. But in Russia, winter arrives first on its Arctic coast. Huge colonies of Atlantic walrus have spent the last few months hauled out on Russia's most northerly islands to rear their young. They spend a third of their entire lives huddled in blubber balls like these for warmth. The rest of their time, the walrus spend in the water, hunting for clams. But when you weigh up to 1.5 tons, getting there takes a bit of improvisation. Mission accomplished. The walrus colony is governed by the largest male. He sports the biggest tusks, and his powerful roars can be heard for almost a mile, allowing him to command the best positions, unchallenged. But that doesn't stop the lower-ranking walrus constantly calling each other into battle. These two are only play fighting. But with over a ton behind each impact, their tusks could inflict a deadly injury to almost any other animal. But thanks to 10 inches of blubber, these impacts don't draw any blood. Eventually, the alpha male steps in to calm things down. Sending the other two back to the beach to cool off. Perfect timing as a summer snow squall blows in. This short flurry gives the walrus their first taste of the approaching winter, when they will finally be able to return to their true home on the Arctic sea ice. And they won't have to wait long. Within just a few short weeks, a merciless winter will tighten its grip across the whole of Russia. It's early winter on Russia's Yamal Peninsula. This barren tundra lies frozen for 8 months of the year. But it's home to some of the toughest animals on Earth. A pair of musk ox making their way across the Yamal's exposed terrain. But a closer look also reveals a calf. In this unforgiving terrain, muskox calves are extremely tough, capable of keeping up with the adults just a few hours after being born. At first, calves are fed exclusively on their mother's milk, but after just a few weeks, this calf also began to graze for himself to fatten up before winter. A vital skill, or he would already have perished in the Yamal's grueling conditions. This muskoxen family spent the summer grazing alone, but the adults are now leading their calf towards a bigger herd. And it turns out they aren't the only ones with a new arrival this year. Gathering in groups of up to 60 for the winter, muskox work together to defend the herd's young from wolves and even polar bears. But it's the weather here that is often the biggest threat. When the sun sets in late November, the muskox won't see it again for 2 months. Yamal's temperatures will gradually begin to drop to an average of -4 degrees Fahrenheit. But with no trees out here on the tundra, the wind can make it feel like -50. Luckily, this muskox's thick coat has 2 separate layers of fur, enabling it to withstand this region's harsh climate. It also has large round hooves, perfect for moving across the snow in search of food. But limited by the shape of its hooves and its short legs, Muskox can only dig down to their food where the snow is relatively shallow and soft. So the constant melting and refreezing of snow, caused by increasingly warmer winters, could create a barrier of ice and make access to the grass almost impossible. Beneath the snow, there is plenty of vegetation to go around. But even with 50,000 square miles to choose from, it seems the grass is always greener, and scuffles over grazing areas are common. Built for battle, each muskox's skull is almost 10 inches thick. In mating season, these clashes escalate into some of nature's most epic duels. But amazingly, these seemingly violent impacts have almost no effect. And despite these constant squabbles, choosing to live as a herd through the Russian winter, the musk oxen stand a better chance of survival. As this entire country enters winter, almost every corner becomes frozen. While Russia's Arctic species have adapted to these extremes, everywhere else, animals must find ways to battle the elements. Some migrate, others burrow down to sit out the months ahead. But whatever methods they use to survive in this vast, frozen wilderness, all must await the return of the sun. After months of extreme winter temperatures, spring has finally arrived in Russia. And the seasons change first here, in the deserts near the Caspian Sea. But it's not until April that temperatures are warm enough for one of its most striking residents to emerge from its winter hiding place. At first glance, this is a rather ordinary-looking lizard. But this secret toad-headed agama has a few hidden tricks to help it thrive in this arid landscape. Daytime temperatures often approach 100 degrees. So the agama adopts a tiptoe stance to limit its contact with the hot sand. Like most lizards, he needs the sun to regulate his body temperature. But sometimes, the desert heat can get too much for the agama. To escape the sun's rays, he buries himself by shimmying into the sand. Almost disappearing in seconds. But this isn't only to keep cool. It also provides excellent camouflage from predators and prey. After 4 months underground in his burrow, the agama is hungry. With his belly full, something else turns his head. A female. April is the beginning of the agama's mating season. With spring in the air, things could soon be hotting up. But he isn't the only male in the area. He'll need to take on this challenger if he wants to earn the right to breed. Fights over females can be bloody, but they have less violent ways to scare off the competition. Pulling out his most impressive hidden weapon, the challenger unveils his brightly colored skin flaps. Undeterred, the other male flicks his tail at the challenger to signal his intent to stand his ground. The challenger replies. Eventually, it works, and the challenger backs down, leaving the other two agamas to get back to business. But creating the next generation is just one battle faced by all of Russia's incredible wildlife. In their fight for survival, each amazing species has found unique ways to overcome the challenges of these extreme and hostile habitats. From the biggest to the smallest, the fastest and even the slowest. These iconic animals face an uncertain future, but for now, they continue to make their home in this wild Eden.